John, as we look into next year, there's a few challenges for pharma on the horizon. Can you fill us in on FTC antitrust challenges, which look to be quite complex, and of course the possibility of price cuts from the IRA?
Right, yeah, sure, Rod. So FTC, they seemingly here changing the playbook and the way they look at deals. Was in the past when they looked at potential mergers, they look at portfolio overlap and then they'd sit down with the companies and there'd be a negotiation process. Now what they're doing is they're actually litigating to stop deals. So as a potential acquirer, you have to be prepared to go through sometimes quite a lengthy and quite a costly litigation process. Some companies are prepared to do this, some are not. Sanofi, for example, walked away. It also introduces a potential barrier to investment in the biotech sector because for many investors, the end game for them is actually a takeout. Well, if you make that more difficult, it's probably not what they intended doing initially, but that's an extra barrier that's been thrown in here. So FTC challenges could continue to be an issue for the industry. Then price cuts. Well, look, we're coming into presidential year. People are always talking about price cuts in the drug industry. But this time around, we're talking about IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, and the enactment of that. What we get to hear this year is by how much these price cuts, what size that they're actually going to be for the first 10 drugs. Then there's going to be a debate around the next 15 that we're going to hear about in 2025. But continued pressure here. However, ignore the rest of the saber rattling that's going to be going on. Talk about patent busting and stuff like that in the US. We're not going to be seeing that at all.
All right. And clearly, one of the big headline grabbers this year has been anti-obesity drugs. Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk have been huge beneficiaries of that. In fact, Novo, I think, is now described as the new NVIDIA for Europe. What does growth look like for the rest of the industry next year?
Yeah, I mean, both those share prices are up nearly 50% in 2023. So it's been quite spectacular. And indeed, as you look into 2024, I mean, short of some sort of implosion of the obesity sector or actually a complete stopping of supply, it's hard to see why their growth should be reined in at all. We expect them to be the two fastest growers. Then you've got the likes of Astra still should be giving us double-digit growth going into next year. And then aside from that, on the other side of the coin, Sanofi has told us they're going to invest in R&D to try and drive their pipeline in 24. So you're going to see an earnings decline there. And the only other earnings decliner amongst large cap pharma we're looking at is Bristol because of Revlimid and their patent impact. And of course, Pfizer. Well, the COVID franchise story is going to run and run here, and clearly that's going to be weaker again. You'd imagine going into 2024.
Okay, and we've touched on obesity drugs and what a huge part of the industry that's been this year, or certainly around news flow. Alzheimer's also strikes me as an enormously important subject too. So for our listeners, when we look into next year, what kind of news flow and catalyst should we be looking for?
Yeah, obesity, can't get away from it, can you? And well, Lilly's Zepbound in obesity, the rollout of that is going to be key next year, as indeed is going to be the supply for it and Novo's Wegovy. But you mentioned Alzheimer's. That's one of 3 approvals we're looking at next year. We're thinking Lilly's donanemab should be approved for Alzheimer's, but you're probably not going to see a massive initial ramp in that product. Other key approvals, we should see Merck has got a sotatercept in pulmonary arterial hypertension. That's going to change standard of care in our view. And also Moderna's RSV vaccine. RSV, a very, very hot area towards the end of this year. That looks like that could be very competitive in that area. One thing we do in our research is we look at catalysts for the year ahead, and we put a little table in every 6 months. So do take a look at that, and you can see how we've done. But pull out a couple of potential catalysts we have for the year ahead. We seem to be waiting forever for Roche's TIGIT inhibitor for data in non-small cell lung cancer. Some of that coming early in the year. Then we've got Bristol, their Opdualag. We've got proof of concept in non-small cell lung cancer there again. Could be quite important. GSK's Depemokimab in asthma. Novartis remibrutinib in urticaria, and in MS, we hopefully will get to find out whether or not the failure for Merck KGaA, its BTK inhibitor, is an issue for the class or just that molecule as we get some more data there. So lots happening as always is the case in pharma.
Great. And you mentioned RSV, John. It's probably worth mentioning that we have a webinar on the 3rd of January.
Absolutely, with a KOL that we did earlier this year as well. Very, very good value he was. So if you've got the time there, please do dial into that.
Do indeed. John, thanks very much for your time.
Cheers, Rod.